I love a good prank video. Book bags full of hot Cheetos, Post-it notes covering a car, people jumping out of closets and scaring someone so they scream and drop their drink all over the place. I am totally in for those things. But sometimes pranks just go too far. You know, the ones where they spray paint their friend's car just for laughs, or dump a smelly fish tank on someone's bed and ruin their sheets and mattress? Or when someone gets pushed into the pool unexpectedly and their phone is in their pocket and it just gets destroyed? You better believe that if it were me, I would instantly be plotting my revenge. And let's be honest, even if I got you back, I'd still not look at you the same way after that. After some pranks, we can't help but wonder, how could they ever forgive and move on from that? And sometimes, the things that make us angry and make us hold a grudge towards someone are worse than a bad prank. For example, maybe your issue started on a Friday night when no one in your friend group made plans. So you stayed home, and while you kicked back with your hot Cheetos, you scrolled through your social feed and saw that some of your friends were hanging out without you. Thanks for the invite, guys. And even though you publicly shrugged it off then, it still bothers you a little bit. They ruined your Friday night. Everyone was invited except for you, and now you're reevaluating your so-called friends. Or maybe your resentment or anger is the result of a direct hit on your character. Maybe one of your supposed friends talked bad about you to one of your least favorite people at school, and now you're bitter against them, even if they are clueless about your feelings. They ruined your reputation and you are ticked off. You thought that that friend had your back, but they just exposed you. But bitterness isn't just reserved for friends. Sometimes family can inspire all kinds of bad vibes too. Maybe your parents said no to going to the most epic party of the year. Maybe they said no to you borrowing the car. Maybe they just say no to you about everything. Siblings can also find their way onto your hit list. Remember that time your sister borrowed your favorite shirt without permission and spilled sauce all over it? She ruined those clothes again. Why does she always wear your stuff? Or maybe you're the oldest kid in your family and you've become an Uber driver for your younger siblings. Only your pay is about $0. So between soccer practice and study groups and going to the movies with your siblings' friends, you've got a grudge that won't stop until he's grown. He's ruined your life and it keeps getting worse. This isn't why you got your license, and why are you responsible for driving him anyways, right? If we're honest, something about that little bit of bitterness starts to feel sweet. Sometimes we just want to hold on to our annoyance, our bitterness, and our frustration. Have you ever done that? So then, what do you do with that worst stuff that happens to you? Especially when you can't stop thinking about it and it's getting a hold of you. When we're young, it typically goes like this. Someone does something wrong, an adult says, "Say you're sorry," and the other person says a half-hearted, "Sorry," and then we all move on. As a kid, it can be hard to quickly switch from being hurt to accepting an apology and forgiving the person who hurt you. But I would say that it's just as hard, if not harder, to forgive as we get older. You probably won't be surprised to hear that bitterness is not a new concept. It actually goes way back, like Bible times back. As long as there have been people on earth, there's been bitterness. And the Bible actually addresses this very issue. About 2,000 years ago, the church was just getting started. And one of the main leaders of that early church was named Paul. And at that time, Paul was a massive popular public figure in Christian culture. But there was a catch. Being popular and liked by Christians meant he was infamous and hated by people who weren't. Meaning because he was in such a high profile as a believer, he was also a big target to those who were not fans of Jesus. What kind of target? Well, here are a few ways that he suffered publicly for serving Christ. He was put into prison over and over. He was beaten. He was flogged, which means that he was beaten with a whip or a bat. He was stoned, which means he was beaten with literal high-speed rocks. Yeah, this is the kind of fame that you would not want. And so here's a guy who's trying to help people, trying to do the right thing, trying to serve God. And how is he being treated? Not great. If anyone deserved to be bitter, It was Paul. But what Paul says about bitterness is actually the opposite of what you might expect. In one of his letters to the church in Thessalonica, Paul encouraged the new Christians there and challenged them to live differently than the world around them. One verse in particular takes an interesting approach to the idea of bitterness and unforgiveness. It says, make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong. 1 Thessalonians 5:15. Now, maybe you're thinking, whoa, revenge is a strong word. I am not into revenge. I'm not sitting in a dark room plotting to get back at whoever wronged me. But maybe Paul isn't just talking about revenge. He's talking about not continuing the cycle of wrong. Maybe paying back wrong for wrong could sound like, he never apologized, so I can't forgive him. Or, they don't deserve my forgiveness or my friendship after that. Or, they didn't earn my forgiveness, or they haven't paid for what they did. Or maybe it's, she hurt me, so I'm going to hurt her. She's canceled. Now, Paul has some legit reasons to be upset. His frustrations were even more frustrating than that sauce stain from your sister. People were treating him badly just for how he was living his life for Jesus. Like, I would classify beatings for good behavior as way overreacting. But even though Paul had suffered and for an unfair reason, he didn't believe that his mistreatment required revenge. Instead, he writes this, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. 1 Thessalonians 5:15. Okay, so hold up. Not only are we supposed to keep ourselves from paying back wrong for wrong, but we're supposed to be nice? That doesn't exactly seem fair, right? And you know what? It's not. And that's the thing. Jesus changes how we see everything, especially forgiveness. But Paul understood a fundamental truth about bitterness and holding on to that hurt. And the truth is this: the more you hold on to a grudge, the more it holds on to you. When I was in high school, my small group leader told me that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person gets sick. I didn't quite understand that at the time, but over the years, it kept coming back to me, and I kept remembering that. Unforgiveness and bitterness can be a nasty cycle we can get stuck in if we're not careful. And the more we dwell and focus on the wrong and how angry we are, the more poison it is. To me. You see, I grew up thinking that forgiveness was for the other person, the one who wronged me. But really, forgiveness is for me. Forgiveness is a conscious decision to let go of someone's debt to us and not expect them to make up for it. Yes, they owe you, but you decide not to wait until they pay you. It's your way of letting go of revenge and negative emotion, not for the other person's benefit. Rarely does the offender, the person who was wrong, benefit from forgiveness. We benefit. When we start to let go of that hurt and bitterness and resentment, they no longer get to control how we feel, and our feelings don't control us. In fact, it takes power away from them. We choose to remove the poison from ourselves. Side note here, let's be clear. We by no means are saying that people who treat you unfairly or abuse you or take advantage of you get a pass to keep doing it. If you're experiencing any kind of abuse, this is your encouragement and permission to have a conversation with an adult that you trust. Jesus set the example of forgiveness when he died on the cross. He showed us how to be selfless and forgive because he knew it was going to be hard. He knew we would want to pay back wrong for wrong and hold on to our bitterness and hurt. But Jesus wants us to forgive for our sake, not just for the other people. Forgiving the people who hurt us is in our best interest, and Jesus wants us to live a healthy and whole life. Now, to clarify, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're not hurt. It doesn't mean that the other person shouldn't experience a consequence. It doesn't mean that it's for the other person's benefit. It doesn't mean that the relationship stays the same. It doesn't mean that you don't set boundaries. It doesn't mean that you condone or excuse what happened. It doesn't mean that you still date that person. It doesn't mean that you stay quiet if someone is hurting you or other people. Speaking up is not tattling or snitching, and it's not about getting someone punished. It is loving yourself and telling a trusted adult to keep yourself and others safe. Speaking up is being honest for the good of all. Forgiveness isn't a magic band-aid that makes everything better, and it never makes what someone did okay or right. But it is the first step towards healing and a better tomorrow. So if you're wondering if you're still holding on to some bitterness or resentment, here's a handy little quiz. First, do you have arguments with someone in your head? You know, those internal conversations where you basically tell them what's up? Are you giving a close friend or family member the silent treatment? Do you consistently subtweet comments in person or online to someone? Do you leave passive-aggressive comments on someone's Insta pics or screenshot them and send them to other friends with snarky comments? Do you think about ways that you can pay someone back for what they did to you 6 months ago? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you may be experiencing some bitterness. But have you ever thought about this? Holding on to resentment and being bitter can be bad for you. Because here's the thing. You can technically be right, you can have truth on your side, but it doesn't change the fact that you are stuck in that negativity. And that negative place can take a toll on you. Let me show you what I mean. Now, I realize many of you are stuck in some real pain. Some of you have been hurt deeply by people that you care about. And that makes things complicated because your hurt is justified and so is your anger. But I can promise you this, the only way that you can find freedom from the anger and the resentment is to forgive the other person, even if they don't deserve it, even if they're not sorry, maybe even especially if they're not sorry. Because what forgiveness really means is choosing to let go before someone else is sorry or deserves anything. And I realize that that's asking a lot. It won't happen overnight, but here are 3 steps that you can take to get freedom from bitterness and unforgiveness. First, acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to be hurt, upset, angry, or sad. Pretending like these feelings aren't there doesn't make them go away. And second, don't let your feelings control you. You can give up your right to get revenge even when your anger says, I deserve to get them back. You can work to let go of your feelings, your frustration, your anger, instead of being held hostage by it. And finally, there is no overnight success for escaping bitterness. It's a process. It takes time. So keep taking one step and then taking it again and then again. Now I know forgiving someone feels like the other person is getting something from you. But as you head out, think about this. What are you getting from holding on to your bitterness? If you could stop replaying that offense over and over in your mind, how much time would you get back? If you could let go of your need to be right, how much less stress would you feel? If you could let go of your need to make things fair, what else could you be doing? I know it sounds counterintuitive or unreasonable, and I know it sounds unfair, and most of all, I know it may sound impossible. But even though this feels like giving up power on your end, letting go actually empowers you. It allows you to finally be released from that poisonous resentment that eats away at you and robs you of your joy in your life. And when we let go and when we're kind to those who have mistreated us, we take the first step from hurt toward healing, because forgiving someone is the best thing you can do with the worst stuff that happens to you.